This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening. I'm Sabrina Brown. Thank you for joining us. Topping the news tonight, despite a court order to return to work, members of 3 unions under the TUC withheld their labor for a second day due to a number of outstanding issues.
Until we get an official court order, you hear the word I use? An official court order, then we go back to work. But there's no official court order.
Members of the Customs, Immigration and Allied Workers Union, the Nurses Union, and Commonwealth Union of Hotel Services say they were not backing down until they receive official documents ordering them to return to work. The workers assembled at the Taxi Union Hall Thursday due to inclement weather. Trustee with the Customs and Immigration Union, Rudy Stubbs, says all of the participating unions have legal certificates to conduct strike action. And he says union leaders will not stand by and allow workers' rights to be violated.
Once you have a dispute within your working environment, and that dispute is sent on to the Minister of Labor for ratification and conciliation, and if it fails, then you make an application to that minister again for a strike poll. And once you are successful at your strike poll, as pertaining to those disputes, then you are issued a strike certificate by that very same Minister of Labor.
Some of the workers who participated in the strike action say they were threatened to be fired. Stubbs says those workers did nothing wrong, and he believes that's just a union-busting tactic.
There will always be the threat of firing. You remember when Customs and Immigration went on strike in 2012? We were told, we know who went, we know who stayed, and we will be fired, those who went. Well, I was one of those who went. Where am I today?
The Director of Labor, Robert Farquharson, commenting on the ongoing strike by affiliates of the Trade Union Congress. Farquharson is urging union members to respect the order of the court.
Order of the court is binding on all parties. The President of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas Trade Union Congress has been served with all of the required documents regarding the order to return to work and to cease forthwith. If those employees remain off the job, they are in violation of the court order and they will be considered in contempt of court. I am certain that if that action continues, the Attorney General will have no choice but to seek an order from the court for those persons who would not comply with the court order to be found in contempt of court.
The Director of Labor points out that this injunction does not apply to the Commonwealth Union of Hotel Services and the Managerial Union at the Grand Lucayan Resort. He says the property is a private entity and the operators can clearly seek an injunction on their own. In the meantime, he is offering a bit of advice to all striking union members.
I want to encourage them to simply follow the law. Simply follow the law. For uncertain, look for the law. It's straight and plain. Look for the law. Look at the Industrial Relations Act. Go to Section 77 of the Act. Read and see what your views are, and make sure exercise your right. You have to exercise your right. Take part in a lawful strike. I encourage every employee to do that. But the term is lawful strike. If the law says certain things, everybody must follow the law.
Members of the government's VAT education team taking the information campaign to the wider community last night. Members addressed a town meeting at the Foster B. Pastena Center here in Freeport. As Megan Shepard tells us, residents had a myriad of questions about the upcoming tax.
Wednesday evening's town meeting provided residents with an opportunity to have open dialogue with the value-added tax education team. Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, John Rowe, reiterating the importance of that to the country.
This is more than just about value-added tax. This is about a government trying to get its financial house in order, cut down on deficit, eliminate deficit, and get its debt burden reduced, because the government spends, well, this year, about $250+ million in interest payments alone on debt, valuable resources that can be placed elsewhere in terms of providing services for the nationals of this country. So this reform really is about getting that debt ratio lowered, taking more of the resources that go into paying interest on debt and channeling it into areas that we can get more direct benefits.
Now, residents were able to put forth questions to the panel, ranging from simple yes or no answers to questions that still need to be looked at in more depth. One resident was particularly concerned about utilities.
I read in this pamphlet that it says that the cost of living will be around 5%. And as I'm hearing over and over that with this legislation, it's also affected in the reduction of customs duty. And I would like to know if in your legislation, is there any protections to control utility increases? As you are controlling customs duty, are you guys controlling electricity, the increase in electricity and the increase in utilities?
Other residents were concerned about which of the basic and day-to-day necessities would be affected come January 1st, 2015.
We would like to know if banks are paying VAT, how does that going to apply to us who have to go to the bank to get a loan, get a mortgage, because all in all, you know they're going to double charge it back to us.
Is VAT paid on gasoline? As it relates to gasoline, will there be a breakdown on the receipt which shows how much Focal gets, how much government gets, and how much VAT gets? Is there going to be a full disclosure of information on the gas receipt? Is VAT payable on pampers for babies? Is VAT payable on baby food? You see, that is my point.
Another resident noted that although the country's #1 industry is tourism, Grand Bahama is mainly driven by its industrial sector, and this should be taken into account.
Grand Bahama Shipyard, we cater to foreign vessels, foreign companies, where we repair the ships for foreign entities. Them coming here is just competitiveness, and we trying to keep the price as low as possible to keep them coming here. So we have to pay VAT on our services to them. What's going to keep them coming here and patronize our business if they have to pay VAT on that?
One local business owner is suggesting complete transparency when it comes to charging consumers VAT on goods.
We've alluded to the fact that we need to make up, or hoping to make up, $300 million here. And I'm patriotic, because you've alluded to our patriotism too, by digging deeper into our pockets. I'd like to see it reflected everywhere, so that the consumer and the public can decide just how patriotic he would like to be with some of his extra money today and tomorrow and every day. So perhaps we would consider showing the VAT separately on price labels, not just as a ballpark number at the bottom of an invoice.
The next town meeting will be held tonight in the Western District. Megan Shepard, ZNS Network News.
Business owners also had an opportunity to hear about the details of the value-added tax set to be implemented in January of next year. Financial Secretary John Roll listening to the concerns and answering questions from business leaders during a luncheon meeting yesterday afternoon. Licensees of the Grand Bahama Port Authority want to know how the value-added tax system will affect their businesses under the Hawksbill Creek Agreement. There was a level of confusion as Financial Secretary at the Ministry of Finance, John Roll, attempted to answer that question.
The business-to-business transaction, there would be the invoicing for the VAT. You claim it back.
The business leaders were still not clear on the issue, and Roll said that there will be further discussions to that end in order to bring clarification. There is concern that VAT could damage the retail sector on Grand Bahama, as many companies may have to eliminate the middleman.
There is no VAT that the licensee would be required to remit or hand over on importation in those cases where they are part of the bonded warehousing arrangements.
Business owners also fear that VAT will open the door for competition with foreign companies as consumers seek to avoid the taxation. Roll says that the government is working to ensure that VAT is made as simple as possible.
There will also be lots of work in terms of taking the various guidance, notes, and guidelines and converting them into VAT rules, following a lot of the feedback from the public in terms of whether there is sufficient clarification or sufficient clarity to what's in those, making sure that what those guidance notes are saying are consistent with the law and that there are no contradictions, and where contradictions may have slipped in, that those are cleaned up.
Some business owners are requesting that the January 1st implementation date be pushed back. Now, the financial secretary correcting a statement made at that luncheon yesterday. During the presentation, John Roll stated that the sale of goods between licensees of the Grand Bahama Port Authority would be subject to VAT, and that VAT would only be excluded based on the amounts that should have been collected by customs. He is now clarifying that this is not the case. He said the intended treatment of these transactions is exactly as they are described in the guidance notes for the port area and in the legislation. Sale of items between licensees where they are considered consumables are not subject to VAT. The financial secretary went on to explain that the law does provide for licensees to apply for a refund of VAT already paid to customs in cases where licensees are supplied with goods shipped from elsewhere in the Bahamas. Under the VAT legislation, port licensees are not required to pay VAT on goods that are imported into Freeport, where they go directly into producing other goods or services. The legislation treats these as non-consumables within the meaning established by the Hawksbill Creek Agreement. As the Ministry of Finance continues its campaign to educate Bahamians on how value-added tax will work, a local religious leader is throwing his support behind this government initiative. Pastor of Mount Calvary Baptist Church, Reverend Paul Mullings, says he appreciates that the government has to take measures to increase its revenue, and while he says he would prefer income tax, he believes the implementation of VAT is a good move.
I am for VAT. I'm for any form of taxation that's going to help us pay our debt, because it has to be paid. But again, the giant in the monster in the room, the 1,000-pound gorilla, whatever you want to call it, accountability. We have to address the problem of wastage, misappropriation, all that kind of stuff, the collection of revenue. Because again, if we don't, no matter what we have on the books, if we're not enforcing it, it's not going to work.
In other news, the public is advised that the emergency lines at the police control room here on Grand Bahama are currently out of service. In the event of an emergency, you are asked to call 350-3014 or 350-3016. The public will be notified when the police emergency lines are back up and running. Stay with us. There's more news after this.